Hello, I'm Alison Hardy from Nottingham Trent University, and I want to start somewhere slightly different from where you might expect. I'm not going to start with a document, partly because it's not published yet, and I'm not going to start with a list of content that pupils need to learn. And I'm not starting from a position where we're thinking about preparing young people for employment in technology or design, important though that is. I want to start with a pupil. Imagine a young person at the end of post-primary. They're about to make choices. They might continue with technology and design, or they might not. But from foundation through to post-primary, they've experienced good technology and design education. So the question I want us to hold is, what do you notice about them? So let's think about them in the classroom. The first thing you notice is how they approach design problems, especially when there isn't a clear route through. They don't look for the right answer straight away. Instead, they start by thinking about who this is for, and not just one person, but a range of people with different needs: physical, emotional, social, cultural, and intellectual. They ask questions: who is this for? What matters? What matters most? They don't rush to close the problem. They're comfortable sitting with that ambiguity, because they've learned that design lives in that complexity. And even at that point, they're beginning to make decisions about what matters most and what the consequences of those choices might be. And when they start developing their ideas, you see something else. They iterate without shame. They expect their ideas to change. They don't fixate on the first. The second, third, fourth version might be better than the first, not because they failed in not producing an original idea in their first one, but because they've learned something from different versions of their design ideas. So they don't settle too quickly. They draw on different strategies to test and develop their ideas. And crucially, they're not just following a process. They're drawing on knowledge. Knowledge about materials, knowledge about processes, knowledge about how things behave. So they're not just doing what's easiest or what they did last time. They're making decisions, and they can explain them. Not only how something looks, but how it works, what might go wrong and why. Their ideas aren't just changing, they're improving in ways that are reasoned. And alongside that, you see how they use critique. They look at their own work and the work of others without it feeling like failure. They ask, what problem does this solve? Who does it serve? What might go wrong? Critique becomes a way of thinking, not something that shuts ideas down, but something that improves them. And that's the point where it starts to extend beyond the task. Because it's not just what they do, it's how they see the world. They notice how things are made, how decisions shape what works and what doesn't. And they begin to ask beyond themselves, who benefits, who doesn't. They understand that technology is never neutral. Inclusion isn't something you add on at the end, it's integral. So they design for the widest possible group from the start, and they begin to see themselves differently, as someone who makes, not just in the technical sense, but as someone who can imagine, realise, reflect and improve. They don't see design as something that happens to them, but something they can shape. They have a sense of agency because they have technology and design capability. And that doesn't happen by accident. It rests on knowledge. Over time, they've built a repertoire, understanding materials, systems and processes. Not just names, but how things behave, what they're good at and what they're not. And crucially, they use that knowledge to make decisions about what's appropriate and why. They also develop a language for thinking. Words like form and function, aesthetics and ergonomics, sustainability, not as definitions, but as tools for thinking, so they can think clearly and talk meaningfully about what they're doing. So what does this mean beyond the classroom? Because most pupils won't become designers, engineers or technologists, but all of them will live in a world that is entirely designed. And because of their experience in technology and design in your classrooms, they understand that world. They're not passive consumers. They can ask who benefits, what are the consequences. They can think critically about what they see and what they value. And because they've made things themselves, they know that change is possible. Technology and design isn't something that happens to them, it's something they can shape. So when we come back to that pupil standing at the end of post-primary, that's what a strong education in technology and design has given them.